everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my May wrap-up. This month was a fairly medium reading month for me. Didn't have any absolute stunners. Well, there was like one that is a potential, and I had one disappointment, which made me very, very, very sad. But overall, pretty even. This month, I ended up reading 10 books, which is my goal for every month this year to make sure that I hit my 120 book reading goal for the year. This month, I ended up reading 4 fantasies, 1 YA fantasy, 1 sci-fi, 1 literary fiction, and 3 graphic novels. But we had everything from a 2.5 star this month to a 5 star, so a range. But anyways, let's get into it. So the first book that I ended up finishing in the month of May was The 7 Moons of Mali Almeida by Shehan Karunatilaka. I think I butchered that last name, I'm so sorry. This was my friend's book club pick for last month. We ended up all collectively really enjoying this book. I don't think any of us gave it below a 4 star. I really liked it. I gave it 4.5 stars. It really did it for me. This definitely, if you're interested in it, please check trigger warnings before you go in, because this follows Mali Almeida, who dies at the beginning of this book, and it's his 7 days in the afterlife that he has to essentially wrap up any unfinished business, and he's got a lot of unfinished business because he was murdered. So he's trying to figure out why, who did it, and to remember what was going on, because he doesn't really remember the last bit there. It also centers the Sri Lankan Civil War, so it deals with a lot of war atrocities. It's heavy, it's a lot, but it's presented to you in a really irreverent, dry humor way, so it is easy to get through, or at least I found it easy to get through. This was definitely very good. This is magic realism, and I highly recommend it. But yes, 4.5 stars. Then I ended up reading Caliban's War, which is book 2 to the Expanse series. This one wasn't quite as good as the first book, but when I read the first book, I think I really loved the first 75% of the book, but the last 25% just really didn't do it for me. But this one, the first 75% was just okay for me, and then the ending was a really good, solid ending. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. I am looking forward to diving more into this series when I get up the hankering to pick up the 3rd book, which is on my shelves right there, Abaddon's Gate. But yes, this was definitely good. This series is an epic sci-fi series, and as this is book 2, I can't really tell you what it's about. It continues a little bit of the thread of the first book. The first book is a pretty good standalone mystery as it is, like a murder mystery race against time and space. It's very, very good, very cinematic. The writing is incredible. I can see every time I read one of these books, I'm like, ah, yes, this feels like it was made for TV. It makes sense as to why they would take it and turn it into a TV show, because it's just perfect for that. These scenes are so riveting and cinematic, and I can just see it laid out in a sequence of episodes, or one episode kind of a drama, you know? This one picks up a new mystery thread, because the first one is following a detective, an ex-detective, and James Holden, and Captain James Holden is also in this as a main character. I think James is the main through line. I could be wrong. I've only read 2 books, but I think he's the main character through line through most of these, if not all of them. Could be wrong, but for the ones that I've seen, he is. And his crew, they're one point of view, and in book 1, they pick up a Detective Miller, and they're trying to figure out the case of a missing girl and this spaceship and stuff. They end up starting a war. All this huge stuff goes down. They uncover a mystery of a proto-molecule. It's a lot. This starts a new mystery kind of in the lines of that missing girl in the first one. This is another missing girl, but they're contacted or reached out to, or approached by a father whose young daughter, who's 4 or 5 years old, has been taken in the middle of this tense wartime situation on their planet. James Holden is all right, let's see if we can find her. And they just keep getting further and further entrenched in this mystery that the further plot of the proto-molecule and all that kind of stuff going on keeps getting more interesting, and more characters were added in this. I didn't really love a lot of the characters that were added in this. Every time I got to the UN ambassador's chapters, even though she was really fun and fiery, I just wanted to get back to the James Holden chapters. Bobby's chapters weren't too bad. I really liked her at the end, but for the most part, again, I just wanted to get back to James Holden's chapters because they were the ones that were filled with action. So that was it. But yeah, 3.5 stars. Then I ended up picking up Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, which, has been taking over on TikTok and the internet. This is the first official TikTok book that TikTok made me want to read, and it was fairly good. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I have a lot of issues with the world building and the fact that every time the God War was mentioned, I was pulled right out of the story. It felt like the combination of the World War II journalistic wartime, you've got male fantasy with like a touch of magic felt so out of place combined with a God War. Like it was jarring. It didn't make sense to me. Like if that had been cut out and it was just a regular war during wartime for the You Got Mail stuff, it would have made so much sense. Would have made so much more sense. It would have worked a lot better for me. But this world just felt not very fleshed out right in the story to me. So that was my biggest issue. I really enjoyed the relationship in here, the You've Got Mail aspects, the magical typewriters, very good. Our couple was lovely, and it's enemies to lovers, which is always great. But yeah. And Rebecca Ross's writing, absolutely beautiful. Like, I cannot tell you guys enough how beautiful this writing was. Next up, I ended up starting my reread and then read through of the Poppy War trilogy. Starting with a reread of the Poppy War, which is the first book in the trilogy by R.F. Kuang. This reread was very good. So if you guys are new on my channel or you haven't been around for a little while, I have been doing this kind of unofficial challenge for myself where I'm trying to finish trilogies and duologies specifically this year that I have just started the first book of, because I am notoriously bad for starting series. I have like over 90 series started. I did a video a little while back using G from Book Roast's new cop-out spreadsheet where there is a section in the sheet where you can log all the series that you were currently reading. And when I logged them all in, I had over 180 in there. I have gone through since then and culled it down to the ones that I have finished and ones that I've DNF'd and that I will not be continuing. But there are still so many in there. And I just keep starting them. Like I keep picking up debuts and like the first in trilogies because they sound so good. So I've been challenging myself to finish trilogies and duologies as best I can this year in like the way of like starting and finishing the trilogy all in one go. And that's what I did with the Poppy War. So I reread the Poppy War because the first time I read this, I didn't love it that much. I think I gave it 3 stars. Just wasn't the right time. Didn't really connect with the characters or the story. Just didn't care. But this time around, I really, really enjoyed this. And the reason why I gave this a second chance and then continued on was because even though I didn't love it when I was going through it originally, I knew, like somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, everybody else loves this. I know this is something that I should really love because it is a dark epic fantasy. It just sounds like something I would absolutely love. So I'm gonna give it another try. I'm really glad that I did, for the most part. So this one I ended up giving 4 stars. And this whole trilogy, by the way, follows Rin, who is a little orphan girl at the beginning of this book who decides that she's gonna put her mind to essentially just getting out of her situation that she's in, and she ends up acing this really big exam and getting accepted into Synagard, which is one of the top soldier schools in their world. She goes to this school, she deals with a lot of racism and all this other stuff, and that's where she kind of gets her start and her knowledge and her fire, I will say. That was a pun that I didn't intend on making. Until it was right there and I was like, yeah. So she gets her drive to prove herself and to make something of herself. Then she goes to war. So these 3 books follow her and her life and that war and the wars and her like coming into her power as a shaman because she can, you know, channel power and stuff. I liked the first one enough and it was definitely better on reread. The second book, the Dragon Republic, was my favorite. I gave it 4.5 stars. This just really did it for me. The story arc was really good. I liked how it was wrapped up. The pace of it was wonderful. I loved the exploration of some things. There were some issues, which is why it didn't get a full 5 star. And then we finished the trilogy with an absolutely abysmal disappointment with a 2.5 star. You can catch all of my thoughts in my specific Poppy War reading vlog. I am going to, from now on, do specific reading vlogs for the series that I do read like this. I intended on doing that with the first series that I did this with, which was the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, but I didn't end up doing that. I read it over 2 different reading vlogs, like weekend reading vlogs, but this one I gave its own reading vlog too. If you want to hear all my thoughts, go watch that. But yeah, this is a huge disappointment. This book was a mess. I was so mad at the end of it. So, and not because of the ending of the book. The ending of the story was exactly what needed to happen. And I was very satisfied with the ending of this book. It almost made it a 3 star, but I was still just so pissed off at the rest of the book. Like the 95% of this book was just bad, and then 5% was really, really good. So, you know, it gets 2.5 stars. I don't know. Go watch my reading vlog if you want more thoughts. I've rambled enough about the series in the past little bit, but overall, the Poppy War trilogy was a little bit of a disappointment for me because this had the potential for being a new favorite series of mine, and this last book really ruined it, but oh well. Then, between The Dragon Republic and The Burning God, I actually read those 3 graphic novels. So I actually made a book outlet order, and these all came in and I read them like the same day. Because when you get little baby graphic novels like this, you can just polish them off so quickly. Especially these, because these are only like 60 pages each. I read The Mighty Nine Origins, Jester, and The Mighty Nine Origins, Yasha, these are my two of my favorite characters from The Mighty Nine. Jester is my favorite character from the Mighty Nine, and Yasha is my beloved, so you know. That might just be because Ashley Johnson is my beloved, but like, it's good. These were actually really, really good. I previously read the Caleb one, and I was kind of disappointed that it didn't really have a storyline to it, and it was just kind of like snapshots of what we already kind of knew. But these had a storyline to them, and they were very, very enjoyable, and I really liked the art of the Jester one. The Yasha one was a little bit hard to look at, but it was still kind of cool and colorful, and I liked the story, so each of these got 4 stars. Then I read the 3rd volume of the Vox Machina Origins graphic novels, and I really like this as well. It's a good continuation of the story, although I wish it did have more to it, because it is the start of like another storyline going into this one, or coming out of this one, so I wish I had number 4 to like go right into it. But definitely really good. Love the art style. Love these so much. 4 stars. And then finally, to end us off for this month, which is very quick, I know, I read Trust of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I had this lined up because coming out of the Poppy War trilogy, I knew I was gonna need something light and wonderful to like cleanse the dark fantasy palette of war atrocities. And this really delivered. This was my only 5-star of the month. This is potentially a new favorite. I think I need to reread it to like really solidify it as a new favorite, but this was such a delight. So Brandon Sanderson, this is the first of his, like, you know, those 4 novels he did for that Kickstarter campaign. This is the first one. And oh God, this was such a delight. This was such a delight. He wrote this originally because one night he said in his little author's note or whatever that him and his wife, and I think his family, were watching The Princess Bride. His wife commented like, Buttercup has very little agency. So Brandon went and wrote the story for her, essentially giving Buttercup that agency. But through my read of it, it's almost like Brandon kind of bent the genders together, because we have Tress, our main character, who does go off to save and find her love interest when he gets taken away in like a very Buttercup Wesley situation. But then she kind of becomes Wesley in this situation, because she is on a pirate ship for the most of it, which piratey, my friends, was so good. She just becomes epic and amazing, and I really, really loved this. The touches back to The Princess Bride were just perfection. Like, The Princess Bride, I have read it and I've watched the movie, but very recently, like, I wasn't a person as a kid who watched The Princess Bride religiously as many people were. I read The Princess Bride through book club with my friends. It was one of our very first picks, and ended up watching the movie at my friend's cabin, who once we had, like, you know, 4 book club when we read that book, and it was so enjoyable. I liked the movie more than the book. But one thing across both the movie and the book is the kind of like self-aware, satirical, lackadaisical, irreverent like dialogue and storytelling. That voice is so unique, and you get that in here because our narrator is Hoyd, who is a character that stretches the Cosmere under a few different names in Brandon's world. And no, you don't need to know any of the other Cosmere to read this, but if you have, it's a wonderful treat, because there are references to other characters. Like, there's Mistborn references in here that made me smile so big, and it was just such an enjoyable time. For me, it was just an utter delight, like from start to finish. Tress was an incredible character. I loved her, and I loved the commentary from the narrator. I really hope Brandon writes more stories from Hoyd's perspective and from his narration, because it was just amazing. It was so much fun. But yeah, you know, the more I'm talking about it, maybe it is a new favorite. So this was definitely the favorite of the month. Trust of the Emerald Sea was 5 stars and fantastic. Anyways, since this is a rather short video, I thought I'd also talk about some of my June TBR hopefuls, because I have a lot of them. Because it is Pride Month, I do want to focus on queer books, but I do have a couple that aren't necessarily, but I have a big old stack that is. So currently I am reading Darkwater Daughter by H.M. Long, which is an arc of Hannah Long's new book that's coming out in July, which I'm so excited about, and I'm loving. I'm 130 pages in, absolutely loving this. Piratey, storm singery, witchy. It's set in the dead of winter though, which is a little weird because we just came out of a heat wave. So it's a little weird to read it in the summer, but I'm really enjoying it. And Hannah Long is just a master with her descriptions and world building. And this book so far, very cinematic. I can see it being a like Pirates of the Caribbean style movie. I'm also currently reading To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monocle Blackgoose, which is a queer dragon book. I'm so excited. Honestly, there's a trend this month with dragon books, my friends, and I'm not mad about it. But yes, I picked this up because TikTok was freaking out about Fourth Wing, and someone in a TikTok said everyone should be freaking out about this book instead of Fourth Wing because this one's actually really good and so much better than Fourth Wing. So that's why I picked it up, and I'm very excited about it. It's written by an Indigenous author. It's queer. We love it, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's about Anakus, who finds a dragon egg that then hatches and like attaches itself to her in a very Aragon style, but then she has to go to the city away from her people and join a dragon academy, which is where I'm at. Then I have 2 library books. I have The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, and I have The Mimicking of Known Successes. So this one, Heart and Mercy, I don't think is queer, but this one has been mentioned that it is queer. So hopefully I get to these 2 this month. They are library books, so I would love to get to them before I have to return them. Then I have a big old stack of queer books that I want to read, plus one that is underneath you, which is A Day of Fall and Night by Samantha Shannon. Again, a very queer book. It is currently underneath you because I was using it to prop up my tripod, and I really want to read it this weekend, so I took the dust jacket off to like remind myself. Other than that one, I have A Marvelous Light by Freya Marsk, which is a queer fantasy romance, I think. It's a gay fantasy romance. I think that's what you could classify it as, but excited. I've heard really good things. And I also have Ashton Parker Doesn't Fail, which is a sapphic romance, the sequel, companion sequel to Delilah Green Doesn't Care, which I read last Pride and absolutely loved. So I would like to make it a tradition to read an Ashley Herring Blake book for Pride. I think that would be very good. But yes, this is also on my list. Then I have Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. L.R. Lamb is also known as Laura Lamb. She is the co-author of Seven Devils and Seven Mercies, some of my favorite sci-fi that I've ever read. I'm very excited about this book. And again, dragons. And it's queer, and it's trans, and we love it. And I'm just on a roll, my guys. I've had a lot of coffee today. And I have The Sun and the Star by Rick Riordan and Marco Shiro. This is the Nico and Will book. I finally got my hands on it. I'm so excited to read this, you guys. I haven't heard like amazing things, just nostalgic stuff because it's Nico and Will. Like, I'm just excited for that. And I just want to live in a Rick Riordan world again because my man Rick, he's so good. And lastly, I have The Daughters of Izdahar. Every time I stutter on that word, Izdahar. And this is by Hadir El-Spy. I'm very excited to get to this. This is apparently sapphic, and I've heard from Tasha Shuri, who I trust with my entire soul, one of my favorite authors, that this is amazing. So definitely on my list, and I'm excited to read it. But I do have too many books on this list to actually read for the rest of the month of June because I am also starting edits on A Little Luck this month, and I know that balancing reading and writing in my life doesn't always go that well. So fingers crossed I can get to these at least this summer, all of these be done by the end of the summer. That would be perfect in prime. I would really love to read them all now because I want to read them all now. I want to get to them all. Yes, my friends, let me know down below what your favorite read from May was and what you are most excited to read for Pride Month for June. I would love to know. As always, please go order my book, A Second Story. It is queer, which is perfect for Pride Month. It's queer normative. Our main characters are gay. Perfect read for Pride Month. Please go buy it. Because I will love you forever if you do. Anyways, my friends, that's it from me. I'm sweating. It's so warm in my apartment. I had to turn my air off for this, so I'm gonna go turn it back on. And I'll catch you guys in another video very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.